the vast cosmos of science fiction, certain entities stand out not only for their terrifying nature, but for their deep-rooted symbolism and mythos. Among these, the Xenomorphs from the Alien franchise and the Cybermen from Doctor Who reign supreme. Both have etched their place in the annals of science fiction through decades of appearances, haunting audiences with their cold efficiency and horrifying implications. But what would happen if these two terrifying forces of sci-fi horror were to collide? In a universe where the darkness of space serves as both a battleground and a grave, the idea of a Xenomorph versus Cyberman confrontation is both chilling and compelling. Xenomorphs, originally brought to life through H.R. Giger's surreal biomechanical artwork, are the ultimate predatory life form. Designed by nature, or perhaps some ancient force, to be the perfect killing machines, they possess a cunning intellect, deadly efficiency, and a terrifying life cycle. Their presence turns advanced ships into tombs and space colonies into slaughterhouses. They are stealthy, brutally violent, and relentlessly adaptive. Their acid blood makes them deadly even in death, and their life cycle, implanting embryos into living hosts, adds a deeply psychological layer to their horror. These creatures don't just kill, they violate, infest, and transform. Every encounter with them is a nightmarish descent into primal fear. On the other hand, the Cybermen are a different kind of horror. Born from the logical endpoint of technological augmentation, they represent the loss of humanity in the pursuit of perfection. Cybermen are human minds encased in emotionless metal shells, stripped of all individualism. Their goal is not destruction for the sake of hunger or instinct, but conversion. They do not merely end lives, they overwrite them. They march in silence, their synchronized steps heralding a future devoid of feeling, freedom, and fallibility. In the Doctor Who universe, the Cybermen are one of the Time Lord's most persistent enemies, returning again and again with upgraded designs and new plans to dominate all life. Bringing these two monstrous forces together in a shared narrative would ignite a battle of instincts versus intellect, chaos versus order, and organic terror versus cold precision. It would be a scenario in which the primal violence of the Xenomorph hive clashes against the cold, methodical conquest strategy of the Cybermen. The battlefield could be a derelict space station orbiting a desolate planet, one originally housing cyber-conversion technology, but now infested by a Xenomorph hive following a failed experiment. Perhaps a group of humans fleeing the war stumbled upon this place, unwittingly bringing both enemies into a collision course. Initially, the Cybermen would likely see the Xenomorphs as chaotic elements to be neutralized or converted. The very concept of the Xenomorph, feral, instinct-driven, biologically perfect, would be an affront to the Cybermen's belief in technological supremacy. The Cybermen would attempt to analyze, capture, and possibly convert the Xenomorphs, perhaps using some poor human hosts as bait to study their behavior. But the Xenomorphs are not easy prey. Their unpredictable and vicious nature would quickly turn any cyber research facility into a war zone. Acid blood would melt through cyber armor, stealth attacks would decimate patrols, and the hive would adapt to the mechanical menace. Meanwhile, the Cybermen would respond with their typical lack of emotion. They would not panic, they would not fear. They would upgrade, adapt, and return stronger. Perhaps they would begin producing new cyberforms designed to resist acid damage or detect xenomorph pheromones. They might attempt to override the biological components of a captured xenomorph, only to realize the creature's neural structure resists cybernetic control due to its alien origin and decentralized intelligence. The Cybermen, known for converting living beings, would meet their match in a species that doesn't conform to typical anatomical or neurological blueprints. What adds to the intrigue is the question of what a xenomorph hive would do if it managed to capture a Cyberman. Given that the xenomorph embryo requires a living host to gestate, the Cybermen, stripped of all organic essence, may initially appear useless to the queen. But what if, in some grotesque twist, a Cyberman with residual organic matter was used? Would the resulting xenomorph carry traits of technological augmentation? Could there emerge a hybrid xenomorph with cybernetic enhancements, a techno-organic beast with the cunning of the Xenomorph and the resilience of the Cybermen. Such a creation would be a horror beyond imagination. Likewise, the Cybermen might attempt their own hybridization project. If they managed to collect enough samples of xenomorph tissue, could they not try to breed a controllable version? A cyber-controlled xenomorph army? But such arrogance could be their downfall. The xenomorphs, even if partially modified, might resist control and turn on their masters. The idea of a xenomorph with cybernetic plating and advanced targeting systems, yet driven by the same base hunger, is terrifying. This showdown would not just be physical, it would be philosophical. The xenomorphs embody the chaotic, primal force of nature. They represent the universe's untamable wildness, the fact that there are things beyond understanding or control. The Cybermen, on the other hand, embody the cold arrogance of technological supremacy, the belief that emotion and flesh are weaknesses to be purged. Their clash is symbolic of two worldviews, one that celebrates instinctual life, and one that seeks to eliminate it for the sake of order. In battle, the outcome would be hard to predict. The Cybermen's advanced weaponry and coordination could hold back a hive assault temporarily. Their ability to reprogram and upgrade might allow them to adapt quickly to xenomorph tactics. But the xenomorph's resilience, stealth, and overwhelming numbers could tip the scale. A xenomorph can navigate vents, cling to ceilings, and ambush without warning. Cybermen, though powerful, are slower and rely on vision and structure. In confined, dark spaces, the xenomorphs would have the advantage. But in open terrain or high-tech zones, the Cybermen might dominate. Another element to consider is the queen. A xenomorph hive queen is not only larger and stronger, but highly intelligent. Her strategy isn't random violence. She plans, organizes, and controls her brood like a general. A confrontation between a cyber leader and the hive queen would be epic. The queen might recognize the Cybermen as a threat not to be destroyed through brute force, but through cunning. Perhaps she'd lure them into traps, bait them into sacrificing valuable units, and weaken them over time before launching a full assault. Would the Cybermen attempt to negotiate or use diplomacy, as they sometimes do when facing insurmountable threats? Highly unlikely. The xenomorphs do not speak, reason, or consider deals. They act on instinct, and their hive mind drives them to expand. It's either kill or be killed. And that makes them even more terrifying to an enemy like the Cybermen, who function on logic and structure. When that structure is disrupted by something unpredictable and primal, their usual tactics might fail. The setting of this battle also plays a crucial role. A sprawling industrial space station would offer many layers of complexity: maintenance shafts, gravity-less zones, reactor rooms, and communication hubs. Each faction would use the terrain differently. Cybermen would patrol in squads, secure zones with electromagnetic locks, and attempt to monitor the hive. The xenomorphs would move unseen, strike quickly, and drag victims into shadows. The humans caught in between would face the worst horrors imaginable, perhaps begging to be killed rather than face either fate, cyber conversion, or being used as a host. Even if one side were to win, the question remains: what would be left? If the xenomorphs overran the Cybermen, the hive might spread unchecked, becoming a galactic-scale threat. If the Cybermen prevailed, they might use the incident to push further their ideology of enforced evolution, now believing they can overcome even nature's most dangerous predator. But perhaps neither would win completely. Perhaps mutual destruction is the only possible outcome when such titans clash. The image of melted cyber helmets in pools of acid, or shattered xenomorph limbs caught in magnetic fields, paints a grim picture. But it is a fitting one. The beauty of such a showdown lies not in a simple victory, but in the spectacle of survival, adaptation, and the raw exploration of fear, power, and identity. The Cybermen and the Xenomorphs are, in their own ways, mirrors of humanity's fears: fear of losing emotion and fear of nature's wrath. Their battle would be one for the ages, and its echoes would resound through the galaxies.